There is a moment many people imagine long before it happens, usually late at night while checking bank balances, calculating expenses in their head, or mentally dividing future income before it even arrives, where they quietly believe that once they finally reach $100,000, everything will feel different, because the number itself carries emotional weight far beyond its mathematical value. It sounds complete, stable, respectable, almost like a finish line designed by society itself. And for years, that number has appeared in movies, business culture, investment conversations, and internet success stories as if crossing it transforms uncertainty into security. What makes this belief powerful is not only the money itself, but the emotional symbolism attached to the number. Because humans do not experience wealth objectively. We experience it psychologically, comparatively, and socially. For someone earning very little, $100,000 appears enormous because the brain measures value relative to current scarcity. The mind imagines freedom through subtraction, fewer bills, fewer anxieties, fewer compromises, fewer moments of saying no. The imagination fills the gaps with calmness and control. Yet something unusual happens when people actually approach that threshold. The emotional distance between aspiration and reality begins shrinking much faster than expected, while the sense of security grows much slower than imagined. Instead of feeling complete, the number often starts feeling strangely temporary, because wealth thresholds move as identity changes. Behavioral economists have studied this phenomenon for decades through a concept called hedonic adaptation, which describes the brain's tendency to normalize improvements after repeated exposure. The first time someone doubles their income, it feels transformative. The second increase feels smaller. Eventually, the nervous system recalibrates entirely, and what once looked luxurious becomes emotionally ordinary. A person who once dreamed about affording restaurant meals now sees them as routine expenses. A larger apartment becomes the new baseline. A safer neighborhood becomes emotionally necessary instead of aspirational. Financial comfort quietly converts into expectation. The mathematics behind this psychological shift is subtle but important. Imagine a person earning $30,000 annually who suddenly begins earning $100,000. Objectively, the increase is massive, but expenses rarely remain fixed when income rises. Housing expands first because living environments directly influence identity and perceived status. Transportation improves next because convenience becomes psychologically tied to self-worth. Then come invisible upgrades that rarely feel extravagant individually but accumulate systemically. Better phones, subscription services, travel expectations, professional appearance standards, upgraded diets, social spending, insurance, healthcare choices, and lifestyle conveniences slowly absorb surplus income without triggering immediate alarm because each change feels justified in isolation. This is where the modern economic system becomes psychologically fascinating. Consumer economies do not simply sell products, they sell emotional stabilization. Every income level comes with an ecosystem of expected behaviors, and entering a higher bracket subtly exposes individuals to more expensive versions of normal life. A person earning $100,000 is often surrounded by people spending like they earn $150,000, which quietly changes perception. Relative wealth begins overpowering absolute wealth. Someone who once felt ambitious and upward moving can suddenly feel average again within a different social environment, even while objectively earning far more than before. The brain is deeply vulnerable to relative comparison because humans evolved in tribes where status influenced survival, mating opportunities, resource access, and social protection. Modern economies still activate those ancient psychological systems, even though survival no longer depends on tribal hierarchy in the same way. Social media intensifies this distortion dramatically because individuals are now exposed to the lifestyles of millions of strangers simultaneously. Wealth becomes visually normalized at impossible scales. Luxury apartments, business-class flights, expensive watches, and entrepreneurial success stories appear continuously inside algorithmic feeds, subtly shifting the emotional definition of what counts as doing well. This creates a strange contradiction inside middle and upper-middle income life. Many people today earn more than previous generations ever imagined, while simultaneously feeling financially behind almost all the time. The reason is that financial stress is not produced solely by numerical scarcity. It is produced by the gap between expectations and perceived stability. When expectations rise faster than emotional security, income increases fail to create lasting psychological relief. There is also a hidden mathematical problem embedded inside large, round numbers like $100,000. Human brains love milestones because they simplify complexity into symbolic achievement. But financially, a single number means almost nothing without context. $100,000 in savings at age 25 means something very different than at age 60. $100,000 in yearly income means something radically different in rural regions versus expensive cities. Wealth without expense ratios is incomplete information. Income without time freedom is incomplete information. Savings without inflation awareness is incomplete information. Inflation itself quietly changes the emotional meaning of money across generations. Decades ago, $100,000 represented extraordinary purchasing power. Today, in many major cities, it represents stability but not abundance. Housing costs alone can absorb enormous percentages of income, especially in urban economic centers where opportunity clusters attract competition. What older generations considered upper-class earnings may now function as middle-class maintenance. Yet culturally, the number still carries old psychological prestige because collective memory changes slower than economic reality. Historically, this pattern repeats constantly. In ancient societies, wealth was measured through land ownership because agriculture controlled survival. During industrialization, factory ownership became the defining economic threshold. In modern economies, liquid capital and scalable assets dominate wealth perception. The symbols evolve, but the psychology remains remarkably stable. Humans continuously attach emotional certainty to externally visible milestones, then emotionally adapt once those milestones become familiar. One of the most important financial realizations a person can experience is understanding that security and wealth are not identical concepts. Security is emotional predictability. Wealth is resource flexibility. A person earning modest income with low debt, controlled expectations, strong savings habits, and stable relationships may experience greater psychological peace than someone earning several times more while trapped inside escalating obligations and identity-driven spending. Modern economies often reward visible success while quietly punishing internal instability. This is why many financially successful individuals continue working far beyond necessity. It is rarely just about money accumulation. Work becomes intertwined with identity, relevance, structure, and social positioning. Once people adapt to a certain lifestyle and self-image, maintaining that identity can feel psychologically mandatory even when objective survival no longer requires it. The threshold keeps moving, because the human brain recalibrates around new baselines faster than most people expect. Interestingly, research in behavioral economics suggests that beyond certain income levels, additional money improves life satisfaction far less dramatically than people predict. The early stages of income growth matter enormously because they reduce genuine hardship and increase autonomy. But after core stability is achieved, emotional well-being becomes increasingly influenced by health, relationships, purpose, stress management, and perceived control over time. This does not mean money becomes unimportant. It means its psychological role changes. The most financially aware individuals eventually stop viewing wealth as a finish line and start viewing it as a system of ratios. income relative to expenses, time relative to obligations, assets relative to liabilities, stress relative to freedom. Once this shift happens, the obsession with symbolic thresholds weakens because numbers alone stop carrying emotional magic. The focus moves toward resilience instead of appearance. In many ways, the belief that $100,000 changes everything is not entirely wrong. The number often does change something important. It changes perspective. It reveals that financial satisfaction is not produced by crossing a single threshold, but by understanding how human psychology continuously reshapes the meaning of enough.